They liked the balance that they had in race.
Casey Kane, we congratulate him, his third career pole.
It's all three Hendrick Motorsports in the front.
There's a few movers and shakers out there.
To victory lane is Joey Logano.
Get the inside line on who's fast and who's last before setting your NASCAR fantasy race team this weekend. This is the Inside Line on MRN.com, presented by Hercules Tires. Now, here are your fantasy experts, Robbie Mays and Tyler Burnett.
Fantasy Friday on MRN.com as the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series is beginning its second round of the playoffs here in the Queen City. He's Robbie Mays. I'm Tyler Burnett. We're here on the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show to help you with your fantasy team this week. Well, I will help you. I don't know what Robbie's going to do.
You know what? I missed hanging out with you in Dover this weekend.
No, you didn't.
I really did.
Are you kidding me?
I had to hang out with Rich Colberth all weekend, so I'm happy to see you again.
Yeah, Toyotas have dominated the playoffs so far. Martin Truex Jr. winning at Chicago, and then Kyle Busch, the 2015 champion, winning back-to-back races at New Hampshire and at Dover. Will it continue, Robbie Mays?
I think it has a very good shot to continue this weekend. Obviously, the Toyotas have run very well at Charlotte Motor Speedway over the last few years. But you can't deny the fact that Chevrolet has won the last two races, with Austin Dillon in the spring, Jimmy Johnson last fall. Jimmy Johnson was a dominant performance. You could say Austin Dillon kind of, lucked into the win with fuel mileage. But Chevrolets, I think, last week at Dover, and we had this conversation on the truck a lot of the weekend. What's going to be the best manufacturer at Dover? And everybody said Toyota, but then there were some people who said, hang on a second, look at the Chevrolets. Look and see what the Chevrolets are doing right now. And I'll be doggone if there wasn't, 3 Hendrick Chevrolets in the top 5 for a lot of that race on Sunday afternoon. So I think Chevrolet has kind of narrowed the gap a little bit. I think Ford is still kind of in third, but I don't think the Toyotas are as dominant as they have been.
Yeah, Chase Elliott and Jimmy Johnson were good plays over the weekend, especially in DraftKings and other, probably Yahoo, if you allocated Chase Elliott before the weekend started. Chase historically has been good at Dover, so I don't know why that was such a big surprise to everyone. I mean, he's pretty good there. Kyle Larson, honestly, probably was the best car until he had, what was that issue he had?
So under the caution for the, I believe it was the stage 2 break,
yeah.
The ECU kind of malfunctioned a little bit. So we had to restart that. So that's kind of what caused him to lose those spots. And unfortunately, passing was such at a premium on Sunday afternoon, he just couldn't get back up there to get those spots that he lost.
Computers and whatnot messing up race cars for Kyle Larson. So if you had, Kyle Busch, you won the race. We get a whole lot of laps. If you had Chase Elliott, you got a whole lot of laps led. Kyle Larson led a whole lot of laps, and Truex led some as well. Probably looking at a similar story this weekend at Charlotte, but we'll talk more about that on the show. All right, coming up on the show today, lead NASCAR analyst at Rotor Grinders, Stephen Young will join us. If you play DraftKings or FanDuel, you might recognize the alias Stevie TPFL, and he has a great podcast in the morning called Morning Grinders. Morning Grind, what is it? I think it's
Morning Grind.
Yeah, Morning Grind podcast, that's what it is. But they do a lot of sports, football, baseball, but they talk NASCAR as well. So excited to have him on. He's a great fantasy mind.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation. I listen to him for a lot of stuff, not just NASCAR, but also for fantasy football too.
We'll also play our favorite game of the week. Let's say it at the same time. Favorite game of the week. Ready?
Under a rock or Tyler.
Sideswipe. Sideswipe is coming up on the show today, and then I'll probably get hit by a rock. We're also going to have Rango Fowler, which we always do. Mm-hmm. I saw a couple tweets over the weekend that he has a pretty big fan following.
People like him more than they like us.
Well,
they really do.
But, yeah.
Okay.
That's all coming your way on this edition of the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires.
O'Reilly. If your wiper blades are worn and streaking, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and save $8 instantly on a pair of Trico Force wiper blades. Improve visibility and save money with Trico Force wiper blades. Plus, take advantage of O'Reilly Auto Parts' free wiper blade installation. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. Limits apply. See store for details.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
It's almost the most refreshing time of the day. Busch O'Clock, a time for relaxing and unwinding with friends and family over a crisp, cold Busch beer. Busch's roots are in racing, but whether you're enjoying the race or going fishing, nothing is better when it's time to relax with a crisp, cold Busch. It's Busch O'Clock. So grab a 6-pack of Busch beer for the cooler, start the grill, and relax. Enjoy responsibly. Anheuser-Busch, Busch Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
For 70 years, Martinsville Speedway has delivered.
Capacity crowd rising.
It's delivered excitement.
It's a real ding-dong battle, and Petty again.
It's delivered action.
Camden just wrecked Joey Logano.
It's delivered great finishes.
A grandfather clock for Dale Earnhardt Jr.
And it will deliver again October 29th as the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series returns to Martinsville Speedway for the first Data 500. Call 877-RACE-TICKS or visit martinsvillespeedway.com today.
Yay or nay, go or stay. It's time for the inside line to sideswipe the competition. Here's Robbie and Tyler.
Robbie Mays and I will be manning the controls for the Motor Racing Network this weekend at Charlotte, as we do not have a broadcast. Our friends at the Performance Racing Network will be there, but Robbie will be doing social and helping out with some news, and I will be doing some news this weekend, and we'll be gathering some audio. We might, we might even have a, Facebook Live on wait, so they're racing Sunday afternoon.
Yes, on purpose. On purpose this year.
Yes, potentially. If it doesn't rain. But
let's not talk about that.
Let's have a Facebook Live Sunday morning and help out all the fans, with their morning.
I'm up for it.
Fantasy picks. All right. Let's play Sideswipe. Daryl, we'll let Robbie Mays go first because he's lighter than me and he's also not as good as fantasy as me.
All right, Robbie Mays, let's do Matt Kenseth.
Matt Kenseth. Okay. Matt Kenseth at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Once upon a time, he won his very first Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series race at Charlotte Motor Speedway. That was the Coca-Cola 600 back in 2000. And I know people don't necessarily agree with me on this, but I feel like the 20 team, and even though they struggled at Dover, I still think they're one of the top-notch teams in the group. Stop shaking your head. I'm going to swipe right on Matt Kenseth this weekend, only if he looks good in practice. If he struggles in practice, if he struggles in qualifying and struggles in practice on Saturday, I'm going to say no. But for right now, going into the weekend, I think this team has some of their swagger back. Not all of it, but I will still swipe right on the 20.
What last week gave you the idea that they had their swagger back?
They qualify well.
They qualified well. Why does that matter? Actually, that will hurt you if you run poorly like they did last week. If you qualify well, that will hurt you on your fantasy lineup because you're going to go backwards.
If I'm supposed to be nice to you, so I'm just going to stop. But I feel like Matt Kenseth is fine. You know what? I'll swipe no on Matt Kenseth.
Nope. You've already swiped right. Okay. You can't take the swipes back. All right. Daryl.
That's actually true. You can't do that. Who's next?
Let's do Kyle Busch.
Kyle Busch. All right. Wow, I got the easiest one of the day. 5 straight. Oh, no, okay, that's Kurt. Sorry. Historically, Charlotte has not been a great racetrack for Kyle Busch. In this case, I really do not care about history. He won the All-Star race. He was really fast at Charlotte before having a tire issue. Or excuse me, he was really fast at Chicago before having a tire issue. He's great at mile-and-a-half racetracks. He finished second in the Coke 600. Start Kyle Busch. Absolutely. He's number 1 start this week. Swipe right. I think Kyle Busch potentially is going to win this race this weekend at Charlotte. 3 in a row.
He led 63 laps in the springtime. The only thing that concerns me about Kyle at Charlotte is he has not led a lot of laps in the last 5 races. Only 68 laps led in the last 5 races. I'm going to agree with you, though, because he's been money for my team. If we had the emoji game up right now, he would be the money bag, but Kyle has been money for me the last few weeks.
All right. Who's Robbie's pick?
Austin Dillon.
Austin Dillon. Okay, so he won this race in the spring. We just talked about this. I'm swiping no on Austin Dillon. Fell out of the playoffs last week after Dover. That team right now, all 3 teams for Richard Childress are struggling right now. Austin Dillon, Ryan Newman, and Paul Menard. This is an easy one. Swipe no on Austin Dillon.
Okay, so could you, I don't know, you sometimes are like the stat analysis guy here. Has anyone ever won a fuel mileage race at the same track in the same year? It just seems like to me it never happens. It never happens.
I feel like it would have been done in places like Michigan or something like that. Maybe. Yeah.
But I'm talking about the same year, like winning the Coke 600, then another fuel mileage race at the Bank of America 500, then winning that. I just can't see it happening with Austin. I think that team outsmarted everyone in the field. There's no question. They deserve the credit of winning the Coke 600 because they outsmarted everyone. I don't think it happens again this year.
No, absolutely not.
In the fall.
No.
Not this year, in the fall.
Nope.
All right, who's my pick?
Daniel Suarez.
Daniel Suarez. Actually, I had him on my sleeper list for the day. Second time at this racetrack in the Cup Series. He was 11th in May. He's gotten better since then. I would potentially think about him, and especially if you're in DraftKings, he's probably going to be a little bit cheaper. I'm not sure he's a fantasy live play because I don't think he's going to lead laps. I think his teammate Kyle Busch, I think Truex, I think another guy I'm going to talk about here in a second is going to lead laps, but I don't think Suarez will. If he qualifies poorly, you might think about him. So for that reason, I'll swipe right on Daniel Suarez. I think they have the speed right now, and the second time around, I think they could potentially be a good play.
Here's the thing about Suarez, okay? He qualified 5th at Dover. He was the highest qualifying non-playoff driver at Dover last week. This is one of those guys, if you look at guys like, Newman or Austin Dillon maybe, who maybe somebody else should have been in the playoffs instead of them, Daniel Suarez is one of those drivers. I like what this team is doing right now. I don't think he's going to lead laps. If he qualifies poorly, start him. If he qualifies top 5, don't start him. Would you say swipe right on him?
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right.
Who else do we got?
Let's do Ryan Newman.
Ryan Newman. Okay, this is another one of those drivers who was in the playoffs, and yes, he got the win at Phoenix, and yes, he had momentum coming into the playoffs, but since the playoffs started, he has struggled. And you go back to Dover last weekend, he finished 13th, so that's 3 straight finishes outside of the top 10. Again, I don't think this team is capable of leading laps. I don't think this team is capable of finishing in the top 5 or the top 10, so I'm swiping no on Ryan Newman.
I'm on the Ryan Newman plan this week. I was on the Danica plan last week. She probably got you some passing points, and you can ask Rich Colbert about that. He started Danica. She got a timely caution there towards the beginning of the race, ended up being towards the front, and she got some passing points. So I think Danica was a good start last week. Newman's numbers at Charlotte are historically pretty good. 4 top 10s in the last 5 races for Ryan Newman at Charlotte. He was good at Darlington. He was a top 5 car there. I would think about him if he is starting somewhere in the 20s. If not, I probably wouldn't go there.
Okay, so we all know the laps led is key. How many laps has Ryan Newman led in the last 5 races?
He probably hasn't led any.
1.
He's led 1.
He led 1 lap in this race last year.
I'm just telling you that he can be a top 10 car this weekend. I think if he starts 20th to 25th, I think he could potentially.
I just don't think he's going to get you a lot of points.
Well, he's probably not he's probably too expensive to play on Fantasy Live.
Absolutely.
Maybe he's a DraftKings. Yeah. He's a pick or a Yahoo. All right, what's my final pick?
Let's do Jimmy Johnson.
James Johnson. He came alive last week at Dover at the end, didn't he?
Yeah.
He got a bunch of passing points. He's great at Charlotte. This is probably the time where this team starts to fire off. In this race last year, of course, he won. He finished 17th, though, in the Coke 600. That worries me a little bit, and they really haven't had 1.5 mile speed. I am probably not going to start Jimmy Johnson this week. He is a little too expensive for me. You can look at practice times, though, and see what he looks like through practice, but I'm probably not going to start him.
So every time I feel like Jimmy Johnson's about to just go off the radar, he goes and does something like he did at Dover last week and makes me a liar. So it's Charlotte, it's the playoffs, it's October. I'm going to disagree with you, respectfully disagree with you.
That's fine.
And say I'm going to start Jimmy Johnson this weekend.
It's fine. I'll talk to you when you're at the bottom of the fantasy field here.
All right.
Who else do you like this week? I mean, who are some must starts?
I mean, obviously, I think you got to do Truex this weekend. Kyle Busch, we talked about him. I don't know about Larson. You look at a guy like maybe Denny Hamlin. He might be a good option. He finished 5th here in the spring. I like Hamlin. That's one of the guys I mentioned. Martin Truex Jr., listen, he has 5 wins this season, 4 of them at 1.5 mile racetracks. He's led a combined 844 laps at 1.5 mile racetracks. We only go to 8 of them. Start Martin Truex Jr. or you're going to lose. And he's led 756 laps at Charlotte in the last 5 races, including 233 in the spring. I potentially like Harvick. I think their speed at Chicago was good. I think that he could be a good start at Charlotte. He's great there. And you mentioned Denny Hamlin. He has 3 top 5s in the last 4 races. All right, let's get to emojis. What's our first one here? What is that? A mystery machine. Mystery. Who's the mystery of the weekend? I think Dale Earnhardt Jr. might be a mystery driver this weekend. He was okay at Dover. Charlotte's a racetrack he's never won at before. He's had success here over the years. I think he might be the mystery guy this weekend. I think Eric Jones is the mystery this weekend because look at this guy hula hooping. I think Eric Jones. I have no idea what's happening. I can't even talk. Eric Jones is the mystery guy this weekend because he was 7th the last time we were here. He's had speed 1.5 mile racetracks. However, he hurt me big time in Chicago. That's why I have him as that. All right, what's our next? Is that the next emoji?
who's going to throw up a prayer this weekend?
Well, some of the guys near the back of the playoff standings, I think you've got guys like McMurray, Blaney, Stenhouse. Definitely Stenhouse, who's just praying to get to Talladega so he could probably win.
I'm going to go with Chase. Round. I think Chase has some speed at mile and a half racetracks. We, of course, saw Tate Gate at Chicago, so we don't know if he's going to have the speed at mile and a half racetracks, but they need a prayer. That kid needs to win a race, and he's that close. That's why I have him.
Yeah.
All right, Stephen Young on the other side of the break. This is the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires.
Citywide to countryside, whatever you drive, wherever you go. Hercules Tires has the value, selection, and industry-leading warranty to get you there, no matter where the road takes you. To learn more, visit HerculesTire.com. Hercules Tires, ride on our strength.
Hey, this is Dale Earnhardt Jr. here. When I have friends and guests at the track who want to hear me during the race,
Appreciate all the hard work.
I send them the racing electronics.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. will win!
That's because if you're not listening to all the action live, you're missing out. Go to racingelectronics.com to pre-rent for great discounts on scanners.
Second flag right here, big wreck in your mirror.
And Fan Vision rentals.
Checkered flag, ready to fly. It's Earnhardt in turn 3.
Or see Racing Electronics and Fan Vision trackside at every NASCAR race.
I love you, man. Thank you. Unbelievable!
Hi, this is Joey Meyer, championship spotter, adequate pilot, and co-host of MRN Motorsports Monday, presented by Outback Steakhouse. Join Woody Kane and I every Monday at noon on MRN.com as we debate the biggest stories in NASCAR.
Back for a year again is Kyle Petty.
I always laugh when we talk about a race car driver designing a race car track. Let me do it.
Oh, there it was. I just designed one. Woo, I made a circle.
Log in every Monday at noon or anytime on demand at MRN.com for MRN Motorsports Monday, presented by Outback Steakhouse.
Welcome back to the Inside Line Fantasy Show. We've been expecting you. Here are your hosts, Robbie Mays and Tyler Burnett.
So as you can see on this video monitor behind us, that came up there in the emoji segment before we end our break, that is a clip from Tyler Versus that you can now see on Motor Racing Network's YouTube. You can check it out on Twitter, Facebook. This week I played against Blake Cook, Robbie Mays, who is, of course, an Xfinity Series playoff driver. And it came out yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, you got to go watch it. Just watch it. It's funny. It's really funny.
I may never sleep again after seeing this. I'm going to have nightmares for the rest of my life. Let's get to the guests.
Hashtag Tyler VS. All right, on the line now, lead NASCAR analyst for Roto Grinders, Stephen Young. Hey, man, how you doing? Good to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Tyler and Robbie. I'm excited to talk some NASCAR with you guys. It's an interesting weekend in Charlotte, right?
Yes.
That it is. And I listened to your podcast, what was it, Monday? Yeah, Monday, when Ty Dillon was on. That was cool that you got to bring him on and talk a little bit of football, and I'm sure you talked a little bit of NASCAR as well, didn't you?
A little bit, yeah. He wanted to talk some football, and, it's always fun talking football with Ty. He's really sharp when it comes to fantasy, and not a lot of people know that.
Yeah, he's great. All right, let's talk about NASCAR fantasy because, honestly, I'm going to be writing down some notes because you're pretty dang good at this stuff. So just give us insight on how you prepare for the weekend. You're coming to the race this weekend at Charlotte. How do you go about picking a fantasy team, whether it be DraftKings or NASCAR Fantasy Live? What's kind of your first step and then how you go forward?
Well, I think a lot of people are going to put too much weight on this race being on Sunday instead of Saturday night. But the last 2 years, we've actually had it on Sunday because of rain. So I think we're going to see pretty close data to what we've seen, over the last couple of years at Charlotte. And, when we're looking at it, we're looking at two dominators with a potential one dominator because Martin Truex Jr. broke everything, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at it, I'm looking at two guys that I think are going to lead laps. I'm looking at current form, who has the best driver rating over the last 5 or 6 races, who's been good at 1.5-mile tracks. Just all this data, and then I'm going to see who qualifies where and, take practice notes and, take all that down and make it into some lineups.
Martin Truex Jr. this year has been dominant, and it doesn't matter if it's on a 1.5-mile racetrack. He's one of the road course at Watkins Glen. it seems like the only time he's not really up front a lot is at the short tracks. I mean, I've started Martin Truex Jr. He's been on my team pretty much the entire season. If you look at his stats at Charlotte Motor Speedway, 24 starts, 1 win, 4 top 5s, 8 top 10s. And yeah, the 4 top 5s may not seem like a lot, but in the last 10 races, his average is a 10.5. I think Martin Truex Jr., for me personally, Steven, there's no question the rest of the year. He's on my team, correct?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue that. You look at the 3 races that he's had at Charlotte in a Toyota with Front Row Motorsports or Front Row Racing, and he's led 233 laps and 392 laps in 2 of those 3 races. So he started 7th in the October race last year, struggled to get to the front. I just don't think that's going to be the case this year. This car has just been incredible, and Martin Truex Jr. has just been the class of the field when it comes to everything at 1.5-mile tracks this year.
I think one of the big questions is Kyle Busch, and he's never won at Charlotte. His numbers here historically aren't that great over the last couple of years. He's been doing a lot better, but he's won the last 2 races in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. Kyle Busch is another guy who's been on my team a lot this year. Very recently, he's been on my team when he won both at New Hampshire and last Sunday at Dover. Do you start Kyle Busch this weekend knowing that Charlotte might not be one of his better racetracks?
Well, eventually Kyle's going to win here, right? Like, he's going to win everywhere. So you look at the data since Michigan. We've had 6 races since Michigan. He's won 3 of them. He has 4 top 5s, 5 top 10s. He's finished in the top 20 in all 6. He's led 502 laps in that stretch, and he has the highest driver rating of 125 in that 6-race, span. So him and Kyle Larson are in just great form right now, outside of Martin Truex Jr. So I think, if we get Kyle or Kyle Larson or Martin Truex Jr. on the pole, they're just going to have to be just guys you have to fit into your, fantasy live lineups this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get to the chase here. I think Truex, Kyle Busch, pretty much if they're starting in the top 4 spots, you're probably going to start one of those 2. The third guy, the third spot in my lineup, especially in Fantasy Live, I struggle with. Kyle Larson, okay, let's be honest. He hasn't been all that great at Charlotte. He finished 33rd in the Coke 600, but he's been good at mile-and-a-half racetracks. He has, a bunch of second-place finishes this year. Do you start Kyle Larson at 3rd spot, or what are some other potential starts there? I kind of like Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin. Who else do you like in that 3rd spot? Because let's be honest, the 78 and the 18 are probably must-starts this weekend.
Yeah, I love Harvick, but you kind of worry about the speed in the Fords this year. We saw them do really well the first maybe 5, 6, 7 races, and then the speed has just really fallen off on all the Fords, not just Harvick, Keselowski, Logano. We really haven't seen them, get up there and dominate races. So I think Eric Jones is really interesting this weekend. I think Chase Elliott's really interesting. I think it's a great spot for Chase to, bounce back after, losing with 2 laps to go last weekend. He's had some rough go here. He's wrecked in 2 of the 4 races, so his average finish, all that stuff is going to be really thrown off. But I don't want that to, bother me too much. When you're looking into the stats a little bit for Chase Elliott, you'll see that his average running position is way higher than his average finishing position, which tells us that he was running really well before the wreck. So I think Eric Jones, Chase Elliott, depending on where Harvick and those guys qualify, I think they're all in play. I really think Eric Jones is my favorite out of the bunch pre-qualifying this week.
Wow, he hurt me too bad at Chicago. I mean, you got to look. He started 25th or somewhere around there, and then they just struggled all day. They were 2 laps, 3 laps down almost the entire race. So you got to weigh that, but they definitely did have speed in their cars. So
the thing is too, I want guys that are racing for something. I want the playoff guys, and Eric Jones is still competing with Suarez for the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. How about sleepers? What do we think?
I think sleepers. Jamie McMurray is always interesting if he doesn't qualify too high. He's a guy that runs well here. I really was sad that Kurt didn't advance in the playoffs because he's actually really good at Charlotte. He has 5 straight top 10 finishes. Yeah. So he was one guy that I was like, oh, can you get him somehow? Just get there. Austin Dillon won this race in the spring on fuel mileage. Not to say that he's not going to have a chance to do that again this weekend. As far as cheap guys go, Casey Kane, I think is always interesting when we come to Charlotte. He has really good history here. He's won this race 4 times, so he's running out of time with this Hendrick car before he moves into the 95 car next year, and I think his chances to win are starting to become slim. So he's always interesting here at Charlotte for me.
Definitely.
Speaking of winners, Steven, who do you think is going to win Sunday's Bank of America 500?
I'm going to say Kyle Busch gets his first Charlotte win this weekend. I think that current form, he's really tough to beat, and he got in front of Truex late in that race in the spring, and if it wasn't for Austin, Kyle would have won that race.
Yeah, it would be his first Cup points win. He of course won $1 million in the All-Star race this year when Kyle Busch won the All-Star race. So, thanks for joining on the show. What do you got coming up this week on the show on Morning Grind Podcast?
Oh yeah, we got our football podcast is on Thursday. If you guys like football, that'll be out, and we break down all the games and just talking fantasy on the podcast Monday through Friday. Appreciate you giving it a shout out. Yeah, when I play fantasy football or fantasy baseball, this is the first place I go to the Morning Grind Podcast at StevieTPFL on Twitter, and you of course can check him out on rotogrinders.com. Thanks for joining us, man, and we'll have you on again soon. All right. Sounds good. See y'all this weekend.
Thank you, man.
Stephen Young, he's going to be here this weekend, so we might have to have him on our Facebook live chat Sunday morning.
We'll definitely be catching up for fantasy racing and fantasy football advice since both of my teams are struggling.
All right. Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Final break. We'll come back. I'll get hit by a rock, and then we'll do other things. This is the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires.
O'Reilly.
1 out of every 4 batteries will fail this winter. Get yours tested for free during Superstart Battery Month at O'Reilly Auto Parts. We'll help determine the life of your battery or the perfect replacement. Plus, take advantage of the mail-in rebates on select Superstart batteries. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. Limits apply. See store for details.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
It's almost Busch o'clock. A time for relaxing and unwinding with a crisp, cold Busch beer. It's the most refreshing time of the day. Wait for it. 3, 2, 1. Busch. Crisp, cold Busch. Enjoy responsibly. Busch Beer. Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri.
It's Rob Tanner, host of America's Tailgate Party, NASCAR USA. Join us every weekend as we get you set for NASCAR racing with 2 hours of the hottest hits in country music. The Motor Racing Network's Woody Kane is here with NASCAR news, and MRN pit reporter Steve Post stops by to talk a little racing. We'll have features and highlights you can't get anywhere else, so be here each weekend for NASCAR USA on the Motor Racing Network.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger. Ready to move out.
Now, back to the Inside Lines dynamic duo. Here's Fat Man and Robbie.
Welcome back to the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires. He's Fat Man. I'm Robbie.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Proud of it.
As long as you acknowledge that. It's time to play our favorite. Well, at least it's my
your
favorite.
name is Robbie, so I would assume that was you. Yeah,
Yes.
You're right. Let's go.
Under a rock or Tyler.
Do you live your life up under a rock? Or are you Tyler Burnett?
Okay, so you walked in the studio this morning thinking we were going to throw some Tom Petty at you, but we're not. We're going to throw another famous person at you. You have absolutely zero reason not to get this. I need the actor's name.
Oh, no.
So Donald,
I don't do actors' names.
You'll get this. So Donald Darrell, if you don't get this, I'm going to slap you. Let's cue it up. Let's play Under a Rock or Tyler. Who is that?
I have no idea. Let me just. Is he from the Andy Griffith Show?
I'm not going to volunteer any additional
He's the cop in Andy Griffith Show. I don't know his name. I don't know.
What's his name?
Barney Fife?
On the show it is, yes. What's his real name?
That's good enough, right?
No, it's not. Judges?
Oh, man. No! No!
Throw it!
Who is it? Who is
Don
it?
Knotts.
I have no idea who that is. I don't know his real name. I know Barney Fife,
throw it at him again.
And that's it.
Rango.
I feel like that wasn't as embarrassing as...
How? That hit me. friendly fire gets me. That's
Yeah.
okay. All right.
The ladies love Rango Fowler.
Apparently
I saw
they
a bunch
do.
of tweets this weekend.
All right, bring in
They
the
love
chicken.
the fantasy foul. All right, let's see what his picks are better than Robbie's. He gives you better advice than Sir Robbie Mays over here. I think I did pretty well on that Under the Rock. I'm actually proud I knew who that was.
Kyle Larson, Martin Truex, Eric Jones, Landon Castle, Ryan Blaney. His winner is Martin Truex, and his car manufacturer is Toyota.
No Kyle Busch. That is going to hurt him. Sorry, Rango. That's going to hurt you.
I
no
agree.
Kyle Busch.
I
All
agree.
right. Stevie had the 18.
The 18.
Who do you have?
Okay, so I know we're on this Toyota bandwagon today. I'm going to break that, and I'm going to go with, drum roll please, Chase Elliott.
Oh, no.
Gets the win.
That is
advances to the round of 8.
Really a bad pick.
You're My mom called me earlier this week and said, "You're mean to Tyler on the show. Stop being mean to Tyler." I want to know on Twitter at Robbie Mays, am I being mean to him? Let me know.
We'll start a Twitter poll. We'll throw up a Twitter poll right now.
We'll do a Twitter poll
Is
on
Robbie
MRN Fantasy.
mean to Tyler? And let's put it up and see what kind of vote we get here on the at MRN Fantasy on Twitter. My pick. Wow. For some reason, the best driver at 1.5 racetracks this year, by far. I mean, I already told you the numbers.
Would you just get to it?
844 laps led. He has 4 wins at 1.5 racetracks. Martin Truex Jr. wins this weekend at Charlotte. I can't believe he was still sitting there for the taking because this guy right here, for some reason, picked Chase Elliott. Final thoughts, Robbie Mays.
I'm not mean to you. I'm looking forward to Charlotte. Home game for us this weekend. Playoffs are starting to heat up, so it's getting good, folks.
And I didn't write down the time, so what's going on this weekend?
Well, PRN has the broadcast this weekend, the Xfinity race tomorrow and the Cup race on Sunday. We're back on the game plan next weekend at Talladega Superspeedway.
Can't wait for Talladega. I love that place.
Oh, that race in the fall is so much fun.
I still wish it was a cutoff. All right, we're going to Talladega next week. Have fun this weekend in the Queen City. Stay dry. And hopefully see a good race on Sunday.
I hope so. Looking forward to it. Should be a good one.
We'll talk to you next week as we head to Talladega. This is the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show, presented by Hercules Tires.
You've been listening to the Inside Line, presented by Hercules Tires. Stream us every Friday on MRN.com or the MRN app. The Inside Line is also available on demand in the MRN.com Media Center, on our Facebook page, on YouTube, or download it through iTunes or Google Play. The Inside Line is a production of the Motor Racing Network.